Kinner Show, presented by Frickers, live on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, everybody, we welcome you in live here on a Wednesday. Well, excuse me. How about last night? That went well. You know, I tried to be over positive. You know, I was trying to be as positive as possible about the Reds' chances of beating the Dodgers. We knew it was slim to none. I just didn't think it was that none. Look, the bottom line is last night's loss against the Dodgers just seems so much more demoralizing because if you can't win with Hunter Green on the mound, then you have any chance of winning at all. And I guess the one twist I could put on this, and by the way, welcome in. Happy Wednesday. Again, the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Yes, the Reds go down at the hands of the Dodgers in game one. Not a big surprise. But I think we're all surprised a little bit just at how quickly the game was done. I mean, Shohei Ohtani just absolutely crushes one of the first few pitches he sees, knocks it out of the ballpark, 1-0 lead right off the bat. Hunter Green started to get settled in that second inning, started to buy in that, okay, a little bit of nerves probably, and I think that's what that was last night. I do think that was a lot of nerves. But I did think that this team was going to be a little bit more battle-tested just because of the fact that they have really not been viewed as a legit playoff team for the, especially in the build to this playoff. No one really gave them a shot to actually win enough games and be in position to take that final wild card spot, and they did, and they had to win a lot of big games to do it. I think it was Hembo from ESPN that put out the record for all the teams against playoff teams or against teams above 500. The Reds had a winning record against teams above 500 this year. So I just, it's not as if I thought that the Reds were better than the Dodgers. It's not as if I thought that, that the Dodgers were overrated. I thought that the Reds' strengths kind of hit a little bit of the weaknesses for the Dodgers. And the bottom line is if you can neutralize that Dodger offensive attack, if you can neutralize that lineup, you're going to have a chance. You're going to have a shot. But when your ace, when your best pitcher, when your hottest prospects, that you draft back in 2017, you give them a $7 million signing bonus, you get a steal of a deal when you get them to extend, or a 6-year contract back in 2023. When the face of your franchise, maybe you could say it's Ellie De La Cruz, but Hunter Green, right? You expect him to go out there and look like the ace of the staff. You expect him to go out there and look like the face of the franchise, and he did not. And I don't want to use this time and use this mic time to sit here and bash Hunter Green. I think what I will say is I don't want that to be a habit or a pattern. I hope that there's going to be many more playoff games that Hunter Green pitches in a Reds jersey. Okay. And what I don't want is the next time he steps foot out on the mound in the playoffs, and hopefully it's next week. Doubt it, but hopefully it's next week. What I don't want is every time Hunter Green steps foot out on the mound in the playoffs, he gets rocked the way he did yesterday, and then, of course, looks dominant during the regular season, because that's a pattern. The bottom line is we haven't seen enough of this Reds team. We haven't seen this Reds team really at all in the playoffs. So I'm not going to bury Hunter Green. It's disappointing that it happened, but we forget just how relatively young this roster is. We forget about how young, and the key word is inexperienced. We didn't expect them to be in the postseason. We didn't expect them to be good enough to get here. We were excited about the Terry Francona signing, as manager a year ago around this time. We knew that they didn't make enough moves in the offseason to really put this team over the top, but it was just enough apparently to do it. So I'm not going to sit here and say, Hunter Green, you're horrible. It's just, I thought last night was disappointing. I'm really not down on Hunter Green. If Hunter Green pitches again, if the Reds somehow miraculously come out of this series and they play next week and Hunter Green's on the mound, guess what? I'm going to feel pretty damn good about the Reds' chances with Hunter Green on the mound. Until I see that he consistently can't deliver in those spots, I'm not going to sit here and be negative about Hunter Green. I saw a lot of people try to bury Hunter Green on social media. That doesn't help. You got to be good fans in the good times and the bad. And I get it. Well, there's always way more bad times than good. To me, being in the playoffs, regardless of what happens, that's way more good than bad. Like I said, if it's a pattern, if every time Hunter Green pitches in the playoffs and he gets shelled, now we can start talking about a narrative that's forming. I'm not going to allow a narrative to be formed after one game. It's disappointing. I said it before. If the Reds can't win with him on the mound, they can't win at all. But the one thing about last night is he got shelled early. Right? Gives up 5 runs on 6 hits and only 3 innings of work, was not efficient at all. So for me to say, well, if the Reds can't win with him on the mound, they have no chance at all. Maybe they do have a shot. The Reds put up 5 runs last night. Maybe they do have a shot. If you put up quality runs like they did, of course, later in the game, when you started to go towards the back end, when the Dodgers had to go to their bullpen, the Reds started putting up some runs, right? If you just get an average outing from a pitcher, the Reds would have had a shot last night. That's why I'm not as down on last night as what I should be. I want to be down. I'm angry. I'm upset. But I think I would have felt more demoralized if Hunter Green would have gone out there and thrown 2 runs on, or given up 1 run on 2 hits in 7 innings, and then the Reds lost. I would feel more gutted about that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not happy they lost. I'm just saying I would have been more upset had Hunter Green gone 7 innings, given up 1 run on 2 hits, had an efficient outing, and then the Reds still couldn't find a way to win. But he didn't have a good outing whatsoever. The Reds didn't have a chance from the get-go. But, man, what if he did neutralize that lineup? You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying, like, it's a lot of what ifs. We know the Reds aren't favored to win this series. And gosh knows what's going to happen coming up later on tonight. But what went wrong last night? I mean, for it to just blow up in our faces so quickly. Ron Howard, he weighs in. He says Green's non-playoff experience really showed. He tried to overpower the batters, but they were just sitting on his fastball. What went wrong last night? Ron, I don't think you're wrong. I think nerves played a huge role in it. As I stated earlier, I think we forget that this is a relatively young roster, very inexperienced. They haven't been in the playoffs, this unit, before, and I don't know if and when they'll be in the playoffs again next time. I would like to think that this is the worst roster Terry Francona is going to manage during his time in Cincinnati. I would like to think that this roster is going to be better next year and right back here in the playoffs again next year. I'd like to think that this team could still find a way to miraculously come back and win this series. Fool's gold, I get that. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. I get, when we step away to, pay some bills here in a few moments, we'll open up the phone lines, 937-518-1410. The Cincinnati Reds, what went wrong last night? You, deep down, there's no way you could say that you expected Hunter Green to get rocked. Deep down, here's how I envisioned the Reds going down last night. I envisioned Hunter Green to go 6-7 innings, giving up just a few hits, maybe a run, talking about how the Reds couldn't produce runs, and then they lose a close one late, like we've seen them do a lot throughout the season. That's how I anticipated that happening last night. That ended up not being the case. Brett Suter was doing an interview in the post game last night, talked about the fact that, the one thing that they have to do is remain positive. There was some positive things down the stretch. The bats did get hot. How about Matt McClain? Is it too little, too late? Possibly. But imagine another big outing from him tonight. What you can't do is go 3 of 15 or 2. You can't go 2 of 15 from the top, 4th of your order. You know what I mean? Like, you can't have that happen. You can't do that again. But guys are going to have to step up with the bats in their hand tonight, because the concern I have is about the pitching that they're rolling out tonight, and we'll get to that more coming up just a moment as we focus on Game 2. But again, the Reds, they go down last night, Game 1, 10-5 against the Dodgers, and Game 2 coming up later on tonight. And Littell's going to be on the mound tonight. We'll focus on that more in a moment. But man, oh man, the Reds are fighting off elimination already. How about the Guardians, by the way? The Cleveland Guardians, they lose a close one yesterday to the Tigers in Game 1 of the American League wildcard series between those two teams. The Guardians and Tigers currently are tied at 1 apiece, bottom of the 6th inning going on right now. We'll keep you updated on that one as that game progresses. The Padres and the Cubs, that game just started. Both scoreless right now in the top of the 1st. So we'll keep you updated on that one as well. Fernando Tatis Jr. up to bat as we currently sit here in the beginning stages of that. Red Sox Yankees last night. How about that one? That was a good one. In fact, I started to get ticked because, at least in the streaming day and age, streaming services day and age, if a game's going to start delayed, you could go watch it on another channel. At least that's what happened. ESPN was able to put Reds Dodgers on ESPN2 in the meantime, and that's what they did. But when I thought that Red Sox Yankees game was going to go into extras, and it definitely started to bleed into the start of the Reds game. But the Red Sox, man, the Yankees came flying back. They had a chance, just couldn't get done. Of course, they get done in by a former Yankee, a former Red at that, and Aroldis Chapman. How is Aroldis Chapman still doing what he's doing? How is he still doing what he's doing? 37 years old and just one of the hardest throwing pitchers in baseball. 32 saves this season. I mean, he had the 5th most saves in all of baseball at 37 years old. He struck out 85 batters this season, has an ERA just a hair over 1 on the year. And Aroldis Chapman stepped up big time last night in that Game 1 American League Wildcard Series between the Yankees and Red Sox. So that Game 2 is coming up later on tonight, as well as the Reds and the Dodgers. All right, we'll step away for a few moments. Again, Game 2, Reds-Dodgers coming up later on tonight. Last night, just not what we expected. And I'm not saying we expected to win. I just expected Hunter Green to look like the ace. I expected him to look like the guy that he has been when healthy, helping lead this team through, some very, very tough outings throughout the year and put them in position to even make the playoffs. What went wrong? Was it nerves, the inexperience, the youth of this team? I mean, there's so many factors that could have played a role in what led to this team struggling the way that they did. But, man, I mean, from a lineup perspective, obviously TJ Friedl, who's been phenomenal all season. I mean, for him to go 0 for 4 last night, striking out twice, not ideal, right? Noelvi Marte, he struck out twice. When your 1 and 2 hole hitters are striking out 4 times combined and there's 7 at bats combined, I mean, that's a problem. Gavin Lux came in, pinch hit for Marte. He gets a hit late in that game. He drove in a run. Andujar got a run in as well. Austin Hayes, we got to see him yesterday back in the lineup. He hadn't started for a while. He went 1 for 3 scoring a run. He struck out at least once. Spencer Steer, 2 for 4 last night. He drives in a run. Ellie De La Cruz, no hits, but did get on base, of course. He was able to draw a walk. He did strike out twice. I mean, that's the frustrating thing. You want to see him, have bigger, more impactful at-bats. He was able to draw a walk. He was able to get on base, and they were able to bring him in at one point. Tyler Stevenson goes 1 for 4. Cabrian Hayes, no surprise. He goes 0 for 4, but obviously we know what he brings to the table defensively at third base. And then Matt McClain, 2 for 4 last night, scores a run. He did strike out twice, but to see Matt McClain get not 1 but 2 impactful hits last night on a night where hits and runs and everything was just coming in at a snail's pace, it's nice. It would be nice to see him have a hot bat early again for the Reds to help kind of set that tone, no doubt about it. Brian Weaver, what up, Brian? Appreciate you tuning in. For those watching on the show, again, Brian Weaver says, Hunter, right or wrong, seemed that the moment was just too big for him, like he was overwhelmed by the importance of the game. And I think that was going to be the case. And Brian, you're right. I think that was going to be the case no matter who Tito threw on the mound last night for the Reds. I think that was going to be the case. If Andrew Abbott would have started Game 1 for the Reds, I think we would have potentially saw the same thing from him. I'm very curious. We're going to talk about this when we come back, but Littell's going to be on the mound for the Reds tonight with Nick Lodolo available to come out of the bullpen. I expect to see 3 from Littell with and go right away to Lodolo to kind of give him those extended innings in the middle. Unless Littell's just mowing his way through the lineup, doubt that's going to happen. That lineup is stupid good. I mean, to go from Shohei Ohtani to Mookie Betts to Freddie Freeman to that's just, man, the best that money can buy, let me tell you. And we saw that on full display last night, no doubt about it. But we're going to talk about how the Reds can position themselves to attack here tonight to try to fight off elimination. But no, you're right, Brian. It did seem the moment was too big. And I think that was going to be the case for any pitcher that went out there. But that's why it's important that I think, yes, you're playing to fight off elimination tonight. But I think that as long as Tito's the manager, we expect to see this team in the playoffs moving forward, which means it's important that in a limited 3-game wildcard series, I'm not saying you throw pitchers out there to throw them out there, but if there's a chance to get as many pitchers out there as possible, just to taste the field, to be able to experience getting a pitch off in a playoff game, I think that type of experience is key moving forward. I want the Reds to win tonight. Obviously, I want them to continue on. We'll see what happens, but let's talk about the Reds' chances and what the game plan could potentially be for Terry Francona and the Cincinnati Reds coming up here later on tonight. Another late one. Brian Weaver says, but we aren't in the playoffs without him. The moment was too big. He seemed overwhelmed by the importance of that game, but also the Reds aren't in the playoffs without him, and that I agree with, no doubt about it. Let's pick up with this when we come back. We're also going to switch gears to the NFL, the Cleveland Browns. Stop me if you've heard this one before. Name another new starting quarterback in Cleveland. We'll talk about that later on in the program as well. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. We'll be right back.
Must qualify for enrollment. Results may vary.
Now, back to the Justin Kinner Show, right here on ESPN Dayton, 1410 Wing AM.
All right, and we are back. I'm Justin Kinner with you here, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. It's October already. How about that? By the way, I'm excited. Starting next week, great opportunity for anyone who likes money. Do you guys like money? I like money. Next week, for the next 2 weeks, starting Monday, you're going to have 2 opportunities an hour between noon and 5. So my show and the Rich Eisen show are partnering up, and there's going to be opportunities for you to be listening 2 times an hour between noon and 5. So twice an hour between the every break between the Rich Eisen show and the Justin Kinner show in the afternoon from noon to 5. Be listening for the winning word that you will enter at wingam.com for your chance to win $2,000. And we'll be doing that for 2 weeks, $2,000 a day for 2 straight weeks between the Rich Eisen show from noon to 3 and my show from 3 to 5. So make sure you're tuning in and listening for that starting next week. We're pretty excited about that. Our week 7 Gridiron game of the week. We're going to be in Beaver Creek coming up on Friday night. Beaver Creek in Springboro. Excited about that. The Cincinnati Bengals, apparently the cheerleaders and the mascot, all that. I've been barred from being around anything Bengals related, apparently, was the joke earlier. But nonetheless, excited about that for that matchup coming up on Friday night. Beaver Creek welcoming in Springboro out of the G-Walk. Can't believe it. We're 60% of the way through the season already, 70% after Friday. Playoffs not too far off in the distance as well. So Springboro at Beaver Creek this Friday. We will have Centerville and Northmont in week 8, Springfield and Fairmont in week 9, and then we'll wrap it up with Centerville and Wayne in week 10. So a lot of really good matchups we have for you here. High school football action every Friday night, our Gridiron game of the week. It'll be Adam Campbell and Josh Copeland on the call coming up this Friday. And then it'll be Adam and Byers for the Fairmont game. So we'll have that schedule pushed out for you guys throughout as far as that goes. We're going to be in Piqua coming up this Saturday, myself and Keith Byers. We're going to be at the Submarine House in Piqua, which I'm excited about. That's their new location. They have an awesome patio out on the side that we're going to be set up outside. We'll be doing some Buckeye trivia, getting you signed up to win Ohio State, Penn State tickets. Thanks to our friends at Submarine House. We have those tickets. We'll be giving those away, and we'll be getting you registered to win those for that Ohio State, Penn State matchup. So come on out to Submarine House in Piqua coming up this Saturday for our pregame tailgate from 6 to 7:30 in Piqua at Submarine House there. So keep that in mind. We have that coming up for you. And then let's see what else we got. Oh, yeah, this Sunday, the Sunday morning tailgate show. We have that for you coming up around the corner as well. And I'll have more information as far as which Frickers location we'll be at. We'll announce that here shortly. All right, coming up later on tonight, game 2 between the Reds and the Dodgers. Okay, Reds and Dodgers coming up later on tonight. The Reds trying to fight off elimination. Is the season done tonight? Are the Reds done tonight? Like, is this the last game of the – I mean, it is pretty wild that we got at least 2 additional games. 162 games is basically what the Reds play every single season, and they busted their behinds for 162 games so that they could get just 2 more games in. Come on. Is the Reds season going to come to an end tonight? I mean, the mopiness on social media today has been pretty bad, by the way. But the Reds they have at least 1 more game tonight. And if they win tonight, at least 1 tomorrow, too. And I'm hoping that they can get there. But I am fascinated by the direction of which Terry Francona is going in with the pitching matchup and everything else tonight. All right, Yamamoto is going to be on the mound for the Dodgers. Okay? Things didn't go well last night against Snell. And I don't anticipate it going much better tonight against Yamamoto on the mound for the Dodgers. And the only way the Reds have a chance is to weather the storm to, again, if you're not going to be able to get base hits, if you're not going to be able to drive in runs, I think the most important thing tonight for the Reds in that lineup is to try and just drive that pitch count up. Try to drive that pitch count up, keep that score as close as you can, and try to fight your way into the Dodgers bullpen. If you can get to the Dodgers bullpen, that seems to be when things open up a bit for that lineup. They're opportunistic that way. By the time they got to the Dodgers bullpen last night and started finally, piling on hits and starting to get runs up on the board, it was too late. Once you've given up 10 runs, 8 runs, 10 runs at that point, you're done. But if the Reds could have just kept the Dodgers in check for that first 5-6 innings, the Reds would have had a puncher's chance at the end. The Reds have to find a way. We know that lineup's going to struggle to put runs up against these starting pitchers for the Dodgers. If they could just drive up that pitch count, try to fight as quick as possible to get that pitch count up and just get to that bullpen, that's going to be their best shot. And the pitching, of course, they have to do everything they can to limit everything that's going on from a run production standpoint from the Dodgers. So they have that coming up later on tonight. I thought it was interesting, and I can't be a hypocrite here. I got annoyed with people constantly ripping Terry Francona and his lineup and roster management. And you've heard me before say that I'm obviously a ginormous fan of Andrew Abbott. I think that, when you think of the ace of this staff, it's obviously Hunter Green. You think of the face of the pitching staff, it's Hunter Green. But I think that the best pitcher for the Reds this season has not been Hunter Green, as good as Hunter Green has been. It's been Andrew Abbott. And I have a hard time believing that we are going to see the Reds in the postseason for the first time in 5 years, or for the first real time in over a decade, and not see their second best pitcher throw against arguably the best lineup in baseball. I can't criticize Terry Francona because I swore I wouldn't. I just don't understand the direction here. So our guy Charlie Goldsmith had asked Terry Francona, why are they going with Littell in game 2 and not Andrew Abbott? And of course, the response from Terry Francona, there's always a little snarkiness between Francona and Charlie Goldsmith. Charlie does a very good job of really pressing Francona on a lot of his decisions. And we've heard the snarkiness from Francona all season when it comes to Charlie Goldsmith, but he looked at Charlie Goldsmith and just said, it's Littell's day. And my thinking is, as much as I love Terry Francona and respect his opinion and everything he does as a Hall of Fame manager who's won multiple World Series, don't you guys agree with me that when it comes to the playoffs, you don't have a day? Your days are numbered, and they're even more numbered now that you're down 1-0 and fighting off elimination tonight. And I don't know. I just don't feel all warm and fuzzy inside with Littell on the mound versus, I don't know, maybe your best pitcher in Andrew Abbott. Now, there's multiple ways to think of this. If you're thinking ahead to game 3, I understand why you don't force Andrew Abbott out there. Part of me wanted to see the Reds pivot. I wanted to see Terry Francona pivot and go to Andrew Abbott in game 2 here tonight. Because you can't think about game 3. You can't think about winning game 3 and going on to the next round of the playoffs if you don't win game 2. But I also understand you don't want to waste Andrew Abbott tonight when you really need an elite level pitcher to close the series out tomorrow if they're fortunate enough to get there. I don't know what the right answer is. But like I said, it's going to be very, very weird to me if the Reds get eliminated tonight and we don't see Andrew Abbott pitch at all. Or if we do see Andrew Abbott pitch in some capacity tonight, I don't know if I even want to see that at the expense of him being on the mound in the first inning tomorrow night, hopefully in an extended series, fighting to move on and advance to the second round, to the divisional round to face the Phillies. I mean, Ron Howard says, Littell has played in these situations. I mean, I completely get that. But Littell, when Terry Francona comes out and says, Littell's going to start, but we have Nick Lodolo ready to come out of the bullpen. Did you guys hear that out? Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're almost telling you, we don't completely trust Littell in this situation to go deep into this ball game. In fact, we already don't trust it so much that we've already come up with a backup plan that, guess what? Nick Lodolo is going to come out of the bullpen. We didn't hear that about Hunter. Hey, Hunter Green's going to start, but hey, if he's not ready, we're going to have Nick Lodolo ready. I almost wish they would have gone to Nick Lodolo last night and had Andrew Abbott tonight, to try to weather that storm late in the game last night with going to Nick Lodolo, but that's not the game plan that they had, and I get that. Like I said, I think Andrew Abbott's been their best pitcher all year. I think their best pitcher is Hunter Green, but I think he's been their best pitcher this year just from being healthy longer and more available, that type of thing. But I'm fascinated to see how tonight goes. I think all of us just felt, okay, they lost game 1. That's it. They're done. There's no way they're going to beat the Dodgers in back-to-back games. But, you sneak one in tonight and you could throw Andrew Abbott in a series finale tomorrow night to advance to the second round. I think anything could happen. I still not backing down. Everyone's like, oh, I bet you feels dumb for your take last night. No, I don't. Hunter Green was horrible last night. If Hunter Green pitches the way we know he's capable of, the Reds have a shot. Of course, if Hunter Green pitches poorly, they don't have a shot. But for the Reds to have an opportunity to knock off the Dodgers in any game this series, they had to get an elite outing from one of their starting pitchers. They didn't get it. They've gotten it almost every night from him. They didn't get it last night. So I'm not going to back down on that take. And I'm not going to back down on the fact that I believe that if you can get Andrew Abbott on that mound, you have another shot to beat the Dodgers. I don't know if you have that shot with Littell. If your plan of attack is to go to Littell and then right into Nick Lodolo, I don't know if that's the right plan of attack. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Brian Weaver says Littell only goes 2 or 3 before Lodolo comes in after the Dodgers stack the lineup with the left hand. Yeah, this is all about trying to get those left-hand hitters in there and then bring in Lodolo. Yes, it's all about the matchup stuff. They're scheming it. I get that. But like Brian, I don't know. Are you saying you agree with it? I understand why they're doing it. I just don't know if I agree with it, because if you had a 1-0 series lead over the Dodgers and you wanted to try to get a little bit cute and try to limit the matchups, I get that. But man, you're fighting off elimination tonight. And so that's kind of where I'm at. Shaw says Abbott pitched Saturday. He's not available. It's Tuesday. He pitched Saturday. The season's on the line. Make him available. I really don't care. I know what you're saying, but like at the same time, if he's available one more day later, but not available, it's like he's available tomorrow. I just don't like at this point, like, hey, you know what? Oh, well, he's not going to pitch today because he pitched Saturday. Well, then great. He's not going to pitch again until Saturday after opening day next year. But I know what you're saying, Shaw, but at the same time, like those are the rules you live by during the regular season. I think that's silly to go that route in the postseason as far as that goes. But nonetheless. All right. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. I'm done with the hot takes with the Reds and promising that they're going to get wins. I'm not backing down from the belief that the Reds should have won last night if Hunter Green pitched the way he's capable of. You know, and that's even with knowing that with the Reds lineup, it didn't produce. I didn't expect it to. I did not expect them to go at Snell and put up runs and challenge him early. I didn't expect that. What I expected them to zip through those first 3 or 4 innings because I thought it was going to be a pitcher's duel. And it was very obvious right off the bat that was not going to be the case. Shohei Ohtani just blasts one into the right field, right outfield. Of course, it is what it is. It is what it is. I'm sure Hunter Green would love that opportunity back. I'm sure we would all like him to get that opportunity back because we just know that he's not that pitcher that he was last night. All right, Justin Kinner, it's the Justin Kinner Show. We're going to switch gears to the NFL. It was announced earlier today. I mean, it was kind of been rumored and kind of circulating throughout the week that the Browns could potentially be making a quarterback change. Well, it's official. The Browns announced, as well as ESPN's Adam Schefter earlier today, that the Cleveland Browns are going to make a change at quarterback. They're going to bench Joe Flacco, and we're going to see the debut of Dylan Gabriel coming up this Sunday against the Vikings. So we'll talk about that when we come back. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. More next.
Promo code CLEAN for a 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code CLEAN for a 25 cents per gallon bonus.
All right, and we are back. I'm Justin Kinner with you here, Dayton's ESPN Radio 1410 Wing AM 937-518-1410. 937-518-1410. That's the number that you can call and jump in on the conversation. Dodgers Reds game 2 of the wild card series tonight over in the National League. Of course, Reds fighting off elimination tonight. I don't think that surprises a lot of people. The Dodgers were heavily favored to win this series. Nobody gave the Reds a whole heck of a lot of chance. The one reason I felt they did have a chance is because you have Hunter Green on the mound. If you can neutralize that lineup of the Dodgers, you give yourself a puncher's chance late. You don't give yourself a puncher's chance late when you get rocked hot. You get rocked hard early. And look, you gave up 5 runs on 6 hits, 3 innings of work. I mean, it was over before it started. And that's, at the end of the day, that's really what this all comes down to. And then by the time the Reds did start to produce runs, it was too little too late down the stretch. I did like that we saw Matt McClain's bat come to life. Too little too late, possibly. Too little too late, absolutely. I mean, it probably is. But that's kind of the reality of it. So obviously, with that being the case, Hunter Green goes last night. You have a Nick Lodolo, you have an Andrew Abbott, and I guess with obviously Terry Francona's approach to tonight, going to put Littell on the mound, but instantly made it be known that, hey, Nick Lodolo is going to be ready to go to come out of the bullpen right away when needed. And I don't know if I like that. I'm still a big Andrew Abbott guy. I've been told, obviously people coming at me a lot saying, look, he just pitched a few days ago. I get that, but this is the playoffs. If I think back to, we've seen guys who have gone on very short days rest throughout the playoffs, who have pitched in the same 7-game series. In the same series, they've gone twice on very short rest when their team absolutely needs it. We've seen it before. And I think right now, hey, the fact that we're not going to see Andrew Abbott possibly at all in this series, when I think he's been their best pitcher all season, I think that's quite the gamble on the side of the Reds as far as that's concerned. I know he just pitched over the weekend. I absolutely get that. I know, a lot of the standards for, days of rest between is for 162 game regular season, 5-man pitching rotation. Some teams flirt with the idea of going 6. I completely get that, but that's not what this case calls for. You're fighting off elimination tonight. And although Littell has been solid since the Reds acquired him at the trade deadline, Nick Lodolo, the potentially going to him coming out. I mean, why would you not go even, Nick Lodolo, I know pitched the other day as well, but it's one of those where they did everything in their power to possibly could to get into the postseason. And now, of course, they're having to adjust around it. But I don't trust the fact that we're going to potentially end this playoff series with the Dodgers tonight, and not once would we have seen Andrew Abbott when it's all said and done. That's my concern one way or another. I mean, look, we saw Dylan Cease last year, he helped lead the Padres. He got them in that National League Championship Series. He took the ball on short rest when he went game 4 last year, just a few days rest between starts. It wasn't ideal. Team didn't want to do it. But when you're fighting off elimination and you're trying to advance and get where you need to, you got to put your best pitchers out there. Even your best pitchers at limited ability after pitching a couple days before still give you a better chance than even some of your better pitchers, healthier pitchers, in the back end of the rotation. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. I mean, going back quite a few years, but one of the biggest name pitchers to do that, you go back to the American League Championship Series, back in 2018, David Price, he went a couple days between starts because the Red Sox desperately needed him out there to put him in position to go beat the Astros during that Game 5 in the American League Championship Series. We've seen pitchers do it. And the Reds are desperate tonight. I'm desperate for them to get a win tonight. But I want to get to the Browns and NFL stuff in a moment, but let's put a bow on this stuff. Shaw, you're on live, man. How are you?
Not bad. How about you?
Another day in paradise. Happy Wednesday.
Yeah, happy Wednesday. And I went to bed early thanks to Hunter Green. That
was the positive spin I had on it. I was like, well, at least I don't have to stay up super late for this one.
Right. I didn't even see the comeback or whatever you want to call putting 5 runs up when the game's over. The positive on that is at least the scoreless inning streak is over with, so we don't have to hear about that anymore. No, last night was disappointing for so many reasons other than just Hunter Green. You're upset about today with Abbott. I was upset starting yesterday, and I'm pretty sure probably here in about 10 minutes when that lineup comes out and I see that lineup again, I just think he's folding altogether between the lineup and the pitching rotation. I think he's folding altogether. So that's a question to be asked in the off season and try to figure out why. The Abbott thing, it's not that I disagree with you, because I understand what you're saying. I understand where you're coming from, but I just don't think Abbott is a David Price, and those other guys that you were mentioning. I just don't see him in that same light. I don't know. I kind of see what he's trying to do tonight.
There's a strategy. That's why I'm not going all hot take-ish on this. I'm just saying what I would prefer, but there is a strategy to it. It's obviously trying to manipulate their lineup, and that's why he put it out there he put that information out there before even game one,
right.
Hoping that they're going to put that lineup together based on the starter, and then they're able to bring in Nick Lodolo to go up against lefties and that type of thing. So we'll see. Yeah, there's definitely a method to it. No doubt about it. Look, if Littell goes out there, by the way, the bar's so low now because of how bad Hunter Green was last night. Littell, could go out there and be slightly better and still look way better than what Hunter Green did last night. So I think the bar was so low. And like I said, I'm not there's really zero expectations for the Reds coming into this series. And I'm not saying it's okay that he didn't show up last night, but the guy's been great all season. It just thinks that the biggest game of the season is the game that he just doesn't have it. We've seen him have it against that lineup before. It's not that he can't do it. We know he can do it. It's just unfortunate that when the lights got the brightest, he couldn't. Now, if I see moving forward and more play, and hopefully there's more playoff appearances from him in the upcoming years, and he folds under the lights after being great in the regular season, then that narrative will start to form, and I'll be back. I'll be negative about him. I'm just not going to. I saw way too many people beating up on him today, and I'm not going to do that. I just think it's unfortunate. 162 games, you get that 163rd game, and that's the one where he just kind of collapses. It's unfortunate, but I'm not down on Hunter Green. I'm not. It's unfortunate. I'm just not down on him.
I'm not down on him either. I'm somewhat down on him for other reasons. I think he's way too injury prone, but that's neither here nor there. With it being his first start in the postseason, his hometown, which was something I wasn't even thinking about. But I think all of that played into the nerves, and all of that played into just the pitching performance last night. And I completely agree with you. If he does this, say they make the playoffs again for the next couple of years, and he does this in the playoffs for the next couple of years, then that narrative is definitely going to pop up, and it's definitely going to be it'll be warranted at that point. But right now, it's the first, and that's the thing. I got upset about the second inning, third inning last night. But I calmed myself down real quick because I was like, first off, what did you really expect? They're playing the Dodgers, and I didn't really have high expectations before the game started anyways, but it was kind of weird. The game started, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh, maybe they can pull this off. So, it was kind of weird, but then I kind of calmed myself down and just was like, you weren't expecting anything before the game. And look how many players on this team, this is their very first experience.
Yep.
There was a lot of at-bats last night, and the lineup is bad anyways, but then they made themselves look even worse last night. And some of it was Snell, and I'll give him his flowers, but a lot of it was also.
Hey Shaw, real quick, you say the lineup was bad. Yeah. People say that a lot, but what's the counter?
Yeah.
Who was not there that should have been in there then?
Sal wasn't in there. I think he should have been having. I think he should have had an at bat.
Where would you have played him?
He should have started. Honestly, first base. Move to left field.
I'm with you, but I did. So when I was looking into this more, again, everything from the trade deadline to now has been about going to position themselves defensively. Spencer Steer has, with his limited time at first base, is actually one of the best defensive first basemen in all of baseball. They went more deep, but we know how many hard hit balls are going to be hit by that lineup, and that's what they prioritize. But I also know that this team needs as much offensive pop in that lineup as possible. Like at some point, they got to get to a point with roster construction where we're not constantly having to give up offense for defense or give up defense for offense. There has to be some kind of more middle ground moving forward. But I get what you're saying, but there was also a justification for that. They wanted to be defensively buttoned up on the corners, and they did that with obviously having Brian Hayes at third, and then Matt McClain at second, and then you look over at first with Spencer Steer. I just don't know where else you would have been able to put Sal Stewart as far as that goes. DH, I guess,
You could, no, because then you're taking Andujar out, and he does well against left-handed hitting and left-handed pitching. I quite honestly, especially today, talking about all hands on deck. And I understand, you went game one with the defense approach, and it didn't give you anything, and it hurt you offensively. Tonight, I think you need to jump him in the first inning. How do you jump him in the first inning? Play Sal Stewart where he's been playing. Play him at third base.
See, I don't know if they going that defensive lineup route the way that they did. I don't think that it didn't work. I think they built that defensive lineup based on expecting to get a Hunter Green start. And if you get a Hunter Green start with that defensive lineup, and then you fight and you're not giving up runs, well, you're not scoring runs. Yes, you get to that Dodgers bullpen. Now it's a different ball game. Now that's where the chess match really starts. The problem is the game got blown up the second that Hunter Green just didn't show up, basically.
100%. And I guess this is where my baseball mind is different than Terry's, because I would have been not expecting the blow up that Hunter did, but I would have been expecting, hey, this isn't going to be a couple starts ago where it's going to be a 7-8 inning one. That's what you hope for. You hope for the 8 inning one hit, no shutout performance. That's what you're hoping for.
Yep.
But hope ain't a strategy. You got to expect with him going against that lineup in his first playoff appearance that he's going to get not rocked, but he's going to get hit a little bit and he's going to give up a couple. So we need more than 2 runs. We're going to need probably 3 to 5 runs in order to be competitive in this ball game. Throwing that lineup out there yesterday, that you're not getting 3 to 5 runs out of that lineup. You're just not.
But I don't think that's what their goal was. As dumb as that sounds, that wasn't their goal.
I mean, and you're 100% correct with that, and that's Tito's explanation for it, and he's got the explanation for all of it, and he's going to have the explanation again today when that same lineup comes trolling out there today, and that's the part of it for me and a bunch of other people who want to sit there and see Sal Stewart in the lineup, Benson in the lineup, your boppers in there on the lineup, and then we can go even further than that. I don't really understand why Espinal's still on this roster. There's guys down in the minors that you could have brought up that could have gave you pop and stuff like that. But it's unfortunate. The other part that I wanted to bring up before I get off here, going back to the pitching aspect of it, a lot of people I've heard say, well, why doesn't he just start Lodolo? Well, in case we forgot, Lodolo was taken out of his last start because of a groin, hamstring, whatever. And I don't think he wants to start Lodolo and then be stuck where the bullpen is scuffing around and they're trying to figure out what we're going to do at that point. So here he starts Littell. He gets them through the first time through the order. He's hoping it's more than just 1 inning. Obviously he's hoping it's 2 to 3, but that's case scenario. Worst case scenario, Lodolo comes in and he's still hurt and he can't go. And now we got Martinez and we got everybody else. But you're prepared for it this way instead of starting Lodolo and you're not even prepared for it. I don't know. I mean, we already know they're behind the 8 ball as it is, just because of roster construction. And at this point, through 162, 163 now, you got to do with what you got to do with. And that's why I'm giving Tito a lot of grace and a lot of runway, because this wasn't his roster. This isn't what he wanted to do with, and he's trying to make the best it do with what he has. It's just, I don't know. I hate going down on the defensive side, and then you load the bases late in the game, and here comes Brian Hayes. I don't know. It's frustrating, but it's the way it is. It's how the cookie crumbles at this point in time. And I know you're up against it, so I'll get off here. Go Blue. Peace.
Go Blue. My goodness. All right. Yeah. Look, that's the thing, though. No one's going to be happy with anything Terry Francona does, and that's the day and age of the man. I mean, that's not the day and age. It's always the case. Everyone knows more than the manager, right? I've been in that. There's times where it sounds like, oh, man, Kinder's saying Terry Francona doesn't know what he's doing. He knows more. Preference, I just want to see the best guys out there. But the problem is you can't have it both ways. You can't have the biggest. And by the way, when we're talking about oh man, these guys are better than these guys offensively in the lineup, are they better enough offensively to outweigh the defensive liability that they become with them out there? Because then all of a sudden, when the Dodgers start just hitting regular routine balls that get past the first baseman, past the third baseman, error here, error there, then it's, my gosh, what are we doing? What are we doing? We can't even field a ground ball. That's the sacrifice. Like, I think they're saying, hey, look, we can bring the pop in the lineup later in the game. We have to be as defensively buttoned up as possible to start the game. That's when our starting pitcher is going to be at his best. We need our defense to be at its best. And then based on the situation we find ourselves in later in the game, we can make adjustments with who we pinch hit late. I get people's frustration. Everyone's like, Sal Stewart should be in the lineup. I agree, but where? Well, he should play at first base. Spencer Steer is one of the best defensive first basemen in baseball. You're going to take him out? Well, just DH him. And then where are you going to put Andujar, who's one of the best hitters, one of the better hitters against left-handed pitchers? What are you going to do with him? Well, they need to find a way to get Will Benson in there. Okay. For who? Who are you going to put him in for? That's where this gets tricky. Everyone wants to be the first to complain about the lineup, to complain about the defensive layout, but no one has any real solutions. And then when the solutions are thrown out there, then it opens up a door for another pocket of people to say, well, now we're bad defensively. This is a problem with the way the roster was. Let's be clear. It's not even how the roster was constructed. We're trying to learn who these guys are. And I will say this. And Chase Burns, tonight would have been the prime opportunity to throw Chase Burns out there as a starter. I know he was used the other day, so that's going to ruin that. But like, if they would have positioned it to where, okay, we know we're not going to have Andrew Abbott after going on Saturday. Let's save Chase Burns for game 2. Because after what I saw last night, I think if anyone could definitely use an outing like tonight, it's Chase Burns. Well, what if he gets rocked? That's fine. Go get that playoff experience in, young pup. Drafted just over a year ago. You speed all the way up through the system, get called up a little before, around the All-Star break. Pitch a ton of innings. I mean, there was 4 straight games he pitched where he struck out 10 or more batters. Only a handful of pitchers have done that in the history of baseball. Rookies. I think what I would have almost used tonight as would just be a baptism by fire. I mean, you don't want to say you don't think you're going to win this series, but if we're not going to win this series and we're going to get this very rare playoff opportunity, let's try to get with what we anticipate to be the first of many playoff appearances moving forward. Let's make sure that when next year comes around, we're not talking about Chase Burns' debut in the playoffs. Let it happen now. Throw Chase Burns out there now. Have Nick Lodolo waiting behind him to come in, and then use Littell later in the game if you have to. Like, I think Chase Burns that needs that playoff experience now. That's crazy. I get that. But at the same time, you're doing a lot of weird decisions with the handling of these pitchers. You already don't expect Littell to go deep into this game anyways, which is why you're already talking about using Nick Lodolo. Nick Lodolo's injured. And you didn't want to start Nick Lodolo because you don't want to have to pull him and put your bullpen in a bad spot. I mean, how much of Nick Lodolo are you going to get injured, whether you bring him in the 4th inning or start him in the 1st? It's a tough spot that they're in, but there's not a whole lot of great situations to be in when you're going up against a powerhouse like the Dodgers. No doubt about it. Other playoff games going on right now. We'll get you updated. As far as that's concerned, over in the American League, the other team in Ohio, the Guardians, trying to fight off elimination here in Game 2 after dropping Game 1 against the Tigers. They have a 3-1 lead over the Tigers right now in the bottom of the 8th inning. There's 2 outs, bottom of the 8th inning, and the Guardians have runners on 2nd and 3rd. As we sit here right now, we'll keep you updated on that. The Padres have a 1-0 lead over the Cubs in the 3rd inning, heading into the 4th inning now. The Padres have 1 run on 3 hits. The Cubs have a couple hits, but no runs to show for it. The Red Sox and Yankees, that game will get underway coming up later on tonight at 6 o'clock. And then, of course, the late one, the Reds and the Dodgers, 9 o'clock on ESPN. The Reds trying to fight off elimination against the Dodgers. Littell will get the start. Yamamoto will get the start for the Dodgers. Cleveland Browns, well, they made an announcement that they're going to, of course, they're going to make a change at quarterback. And no more Joe Flacco starting for the Browns. It's going to be Dylan Gabriel. Dylan Gabriel will be the starting quarterback, but who's going to be the backup? Doesn't it make sense that now everyone just kind of moves up the depth chart a little bit? Well, it's not exactly what you would think. We'll talk about all of that coming up, what this means for the Browns and the significance of the Browns and the AFC North moving forward with all the chaos and turmoil happening with all the other teams in the North. We'll get to that when we come back. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits.
A smarter way to mop. Try it or your money back.
All right, and we are back. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits. All right, let's switch over to the NFL. We spent a lot of time beating up on the Bengals yesterday because, of course, they were just an embarrassment on Monday Night Football, of course, against the Broncos. That's not a shot. A lot of Bengals fans agreed with me that it was quite the embarrassment at the end of the day. I mean, it was not good, obviously. So, other news of the NFL today involving the other team in Ohio, of course, the Cleveland Browns let it be known and announced that they are going to be making a change at quarterback starting this Sunday in the Browns matchup with the Vikings. So the Cleveland Browns announced that they are going to bench Joe Flacco and they're going to turn to Dylan Gabriel as their starting quarterback. So that's the plan moving forward. The Browns, according to ESPN's Adam Schefter, the Browns are benching veteran quarterback Joe Flacco and will turn to Dylan Gabriel as their starter for Sunday's game in London against the Vikings. Now, Flacco is going to serve as Cleveland's backup Sunday. Rookie Shedeur Sanders, the other rookie, will remain the third-string quarterback. Of course, that's led to a whole other string of topics that I really don't care about. The Shedeur thing is getting tired, not from the handling of it from Cleveland. I think that Shedeur, to this day, if he hasn't been humbled yet, I don't think he ever will be humbled. I don't think the kid gets it. I think that, he did this weird thing today where when the media asked him questions, he would move his mouth as if he was talking, but he pretended to be a mime and wouldn't actually say anything because, everyone twists his words and puts words in his mouth. I think that you make it too easy for people to twist the words that are in his mouth. I think that's the problem. And if you said the right thing, you can't twist the right thing. You can't. You just can't. I wanted the Shedeur thing to work. It's just more of a headache than anything else. The bottom line is Dylan Gabriel was a Kevin Stefanski draft pick. That's who he wanted. That's who he, loved in college. That's who he envisions running his offense. And for people out there that say, well, he's crazy. We watched Dylan Gabriel in college. There's nothing to feel good about with Dylan Gabriel. Let's be clear. Kevin Stefanski knows his job is on the line, right? He knows his job is on the line. If he wasn't 1,000,000,000% confident that he could keep his job and win with Dylan Gabriel, I don't think he makes this decision. And I do think that the one thing that the Cleveland Browns do know is that Joe Flacco can't continue to be the quarterback at this point. As far as that's concerned. I just kind of feel like at this point, I think Cleveland has more problems than just quarterback. I don't think Joe Flacco was the problem, but he's definitely not the solution. And I think that Cedric Tillman on the IR again, I'm a big Cedric Tillman guy. And I think you guys got to see glimpses when he's been healthy. You guys have seen the guy's pretty damn good. He's not Jamar Chase or T. Higgins, but my gosh, he's a guy you could throw the damn football in the direction towards, and he's going to come down with it. Jerry Jeudy's disappeared. That's a problem. Cedric Tillman's not going to be healthy because Dylan Gabriel's back. And I hope Jerry Jeudy, maybe just a change in not scenery, but a change of who's throwing him the football might kind of open his game back up like we saw last year. I don't know what to make of this change for Dylan Gabriel, but I do find the timing to be very interesting. Why now? Why decide to go in a different direction now at quarterback when Tillman's injured? And you think you'd want to go to your rookie quarterback when you have all your ducks in a row to make sure that you put him in the best position to succeed. Because if Dylan Gabriel doesn't succeed, and I think that we could see that's the last of Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski. I think that the timing is interesting, and I don't think it's bad timing. I think it's good timing. I think that the Browns, I don't want to say smell blood in the water. That might be giving them a little bit too much credit. But guys, someone has to win this division. And although it kind of feels like everyone's saying that it's the Pittsburgh Steelers, just because they're sitting at 3-1 right now, and they have the Browns and the Bengals the next 2 weeks. They actually have a bye week coming up, but they're going to have the Browns and Bengals coming out. But the Colts are pretty good. The Packers are good. The Chargers are good. The Bills, right? The Lions. They still have the Ravens twice, and the Ravens may not be as good as we thought either. We'll get to them in a moment. But there's a lot of losses potentially sitting there for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And let's be clear, they had to win and fight and claw like crazy to beat a bad Patriots team. They had to win and fight and claw like crazy to beat a bad Vikings team. But to their credit, they find ways to win games. That's the Mike Tomlin way. And when you have a legendary quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, who still has a lot left in the tank, They're going to be in position to win a lot of these games, but I don't think that they are a runaway favorite to take this. The Cincinnati Bengals look as about as atrocious as possible. Like the problem with the Steelers is that, and maybe not, maybe I do know their identity. What is their identity? Their identity is their head coach and their quarterback, because their offensive line's not good. Their defense isn't good. They can't really run the football. And it's not as if Aaron Rodgers is just leading that team up and down the field at ease either. But they just have that it factor. But they don't really have an identity. The Ravens, what is their identity? Their quarterback, their identity, their record right now is 1-3. You're going to be without Lamar Jackson for the next, 2 to 3 weeks. There's a bye week in there, so that's basically another month. You're 1-3 with Lamar Jackson. I don't know how many wins are floating around in there without him. And then there's the Cincinnati Bengals, who are just straight up embarrassingly bad without Joe. And let's be clear, they were embarrassingly bad with Joe Burrow, or they were just bad with Joe Burrow. They're embarrassingly bad without him at this point, right? Like everyone out there, man, Joe Burrow, he's so good. Look how bad this team is without him. This team looked horrible with him. Did you guys not watch Cincinnati in week 1? Did you not see how bad they looked in the first half against the Jaguars? And then all of a sudden, you have a quarterback that opened it up in Browning and threw 3 interceptions, still won the football game. But my goodness, the bottom line is the Steelers, no one's super confident in their ability to run away with the division. The Bengals are atrocious. They might actually be contending to pick, top 3 in the draft. That's how bad they've looked the last 2 weeks. Maybe they turn it around. I don't know. And the Ravens are 1-3, and there's a couple more losses coming up in the next month just because they're going to be without Lamar Jackson for the next month. So why would the Browns make this change now? I think they smell blood in the water. I think there's an opportunity here. When you talk about the identity of all these teams, what's the identity of the Bengals? They can't score. They can't pass. They can't run. They can't stop anybody. They don't have an identity. The Bengals are just bad. What's the Ravens' identity? Without Lamar Jackson, they can't pass the ball. They can't run the football. And their defense has been really, really bad. They've been really, really bad too. They've given up 35 or more in 3 of the first 4 weeks. Like, they're really bad. What's the Steelers' identity? We just talked about. I don't know. Their defense isn't good. They're not a good running team. I mean, they could pass the ball, but I don't think that's the identity of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Or you know what I mean? Like, the Browns, legitimately, whether you guys want to admit it or not, as stupid as it sounds, they're the only team in the AFC North that right now has a legit identity. Not only is that the best defense in the division, that might be a top 3 defense in the league. And you make a change now with the 1-3 Ravens, a 2-2 Bengals that feels like 0-4, and a 3-1 Steelers going into the bye week that you're going to face here in a couple weeks. The Browns could get back into this fairly quickly. If the problem truly was just who was at quarterback, the fact that there was no mobility whatsoever for Joe Flacco, a couple of plays that break down, Joe Flacco could not make plays with his legs. Dylan Gabriel can. And you could say, well, is that, and he's also going to be smart with the football. That's one reason Kevin Stefanski really liked him coming out of college. We'll see what I just think that this change to me screams that Kevin Stefanski and this Browns team feel like they have an opportunity to chip away at this division. The Browns are 1-3. They should be at the very least 2-2. It pains me about that week 1. It's going to pain me for a long time. That loss to the Bengals in week 1. That one will stick with me for a long time. Just absolutely brutal. You are what your record says you are, but this is a 500 team. I mean, they should have won that Bengals game, right? They didn't, and I get that, but this is a team that technically should be sitting here at 2-2. They're 1-3, and they're making a quarterback change with the best defense going up against a backup quarterback in the Vikings coming up this weekend. And you always see that when a team debuts a new quarterback, they all play that inspired football. I think Cleveland gets that win this weekend. I think Cleveland beats the Vikings. I really do. I think that, him debuting in London is interesting. Minnesota is a 3.5-point favorite, as they should be. I mean, we know nothing about what this offense is going to look like in Cleveland, but I think it can't look any worse than what it has with Joe Flacco running it. And I like Joe Flacco, but I think you're going to see a much more balanced offense now with their ability to run the football. I don't think they're going to take as many big time shots down the field, which means it's going to limit their turnovers. Half the points that the Browns have given up, and they haven't given up many, half of them, though, have come from because turnovers have just put the opponent right in their territory and it made it easy just to lob it up and score. Stop putting the defense in bad spots. Be able to win the field position game. Even if you don't get anything out of a drive, still put yourself in position to punt and bury your opponent deep, and you have your defense there to clean up your mess. keep those games low scoring, and Cleveland's going to have a chance. Look what happened against the Packers. Keep that game. That's a hell of an offense. It's a hell of a team. It's a Super Bowl contender that Cleveland beat 2 weeks ago because they didn't turn the ball over. All right. They won the field position game, and the defense put them in position to win that game, and they did. And I think when you don't turn the ball over, which hopefully Dylan Gabriel doesn't, they're going to be in a lot more of these games moving forward. I actually think that when you look at how bad the AFC North is, this move makes a lot of sense. As bad as it is, as bad as everyone thinks Cleveland is, guys, name one strong side of the ball in Baltimore. They don't have it. They don't even have their quarterback right now. The Bengals can't do one tiny thing right. What's one thing that they can do right? Show up on time for the game? That's about it. The Steelers have a lot of problems. Nobody in the North has a side of the ball that is as buttoned up as the Browns do on defense, and that's half the battle. And if they could just get average offensive production with the change at quarterback for Dylan Gabriel, I think Cleveland can make some noise moving forward. I really do. You can roll your eyes, you guys can mock it, you can laugh at it, but no one has anything that makes sense as to why the Browns can't compete in the division moving forward. When you talk about how bad, look at Cincinnati the last 2 weeks, look at how bad Lamar and the Ravens have been, and they're going to be without Lamar for the next couple of weeks as well. We'll see what happens. But Pittsburgh, they started out hot last year too and cooled off and missed the playoffs. We'll see what ends up happening. So I did ask one question. We had Jason Fitz on the program yesterday. I asked Jason Fitz, you look at the Browns and you look at the Bengals, which team do you think will finish the season with more wins? You have the 1-3 Browns, who should have beat the Bengals in week 1, but didn't. So they're 1-3, and the Bengals are 2-2, but they almost feel 0-4. The Browns and Bengals, which team is going to finish with more wins at the end of the season? Here's what Jason Fitz had to say. Team finishes with more wins at the end of the year.
Well, I think the Browns might actually finish with more wins right now.
Someone asked me that earlier today, and I said, maybe it's the homer in me, but I knew we were having you on today. Someone asked me that earlier today, and I said, maybe it's the homer in me, but I'm not being a homer. I feel like it's the Browns just because that defense. I don't know what the identity of the Bengals is.
I mean, the Browns can find a way to beat the Packers if you slip up at all, right? Like the Browns will win some games they shouldn't win because their defense is so sneaky good, and I just don't trust Jake Browning at all. And the other part about the Cincinnati equation is there's a lot of people I see online presuming that he's just going to come back in week 13 and everything's going to be fine. He being Burrow. We have no idea. Like the timeline on this could be longer. It could take a minute to get back in football shape. He could be coming back to a team that has 3 wins. And what's the point at that point? Like there's so many variables with Burrow. Yeah, I don't trust Jake Browning to go through the rest of this season. Like, I think it's funny that there were people trying to tell us the first time he trotted out on the field, no, he could start in some teams. Like, no, Jake Browning's trust Jake Browning to go through the rest of this season. Like, I think it's funny that there were people trying to tell us the first time he trotted out on the field, no, he could start in some teams. Like, no, Jake Browning's a starter. Really? Now we've seen it. I don't trust Jake Browning at all. I mean, I don't understand how you go into most Sundays with hope, knowing that you are just wildly not capable of competing with the other quarterback, no matter who the other quarterback is.
And again, that was Jason Fitz, Yahoo Sports, who joined us on the show yesterday. If you missed that, we have that coming up for you again. We talked all AFC North, including that very topic right there. But yeah, moving forward, I don't think it's as crazy as a thought as what you guys may think it is. I think the Browns are going to finish the season with more wins than the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cleveland Browns are making a quarterback change right now. The Cleveland Browns can run the football. They at least have that going for them. The Cleveland Browns have arguably a top 3 defense in the NFL. The Browns have something that the Bengals don't have, and that's an identity. The Bengals don't have an identity. They can't run the football. They can't stop the football. They can no longer pass. They can't protect the quarterback. They have no identity whatsoever. The Browns aren't a top 5 team in the NFL by any means, but they have an identity and they have a top 3 defense. They have something that they can, every week the Browns have something about their game that they can lean into to put them in position to win football games. The Bengals don't have that. Right now, the Ravens don't have that. The Steelers have something there. There's something there. But I still think a lot of people, the jury is still out on the Steelers. I think that the Browns have a shot to make a run here if Dylan Gabriel's the guy. And here's why I think he is. Here's why I think Dylan Gabriel's the guy. Because Kevin Stefanski, I mean, he did everything in his power to draft Dylan Gabriel. He knows that if this doesn't work with Dylan Gabriel, he's done. He's toast. His job is, he's over. He's putting all of his faith and his job security in the hands of this rookie, and I don't think he would do it if he truly felt that he wasn't capable of doing it or that he wasn't a good enough quarterback for him to remain employed in Cleveland, unless he wants out, and I'm sure you guys will make that joke as well. Chad Kinser says, I hate to say it, but I 100% agree with you, buddy. That doesn't happen a lot. But Chad, no, I appreciate it. Like, I don't see how anyone can make a counter argument to that. Like, I'm not even saying Cleveland's really good, but they have an elite defense and they have something that they can lean into to help them win football games. Cincinnati doesn't. I think Cleveland finishes the season with more wins than the Bengals, which is why from the beginning, I just never thought that we would see Joe Burrow again this year, even if he is healthy at the midway point of December. Knowing that he's injury prone, why would you rush him back? Just, you know what I mean? Like, what do you get out of rushing him back at the end? If I'm the Bengals, I put bubble wrap around him and don't break him out of it until next July when it's time to start training camp again. But we'll see what happens. But the North went from being the most interesting division to a painful division very, very quickly. Very quickly. All right, I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. Jason Fitz from Yahoo Sports, he jumped on with us yesterday. We recapped what went wrong for the Bengals on Monday Night Football against the Denver Broncos. Did the Bengals quit on Monday night? We talked about that with Jason Fitz. We also discussed where the Bengals stack up against the rest of the AFC North at 2-2 without Burrow for the next 3 months. Do they still have a shot to position themselves for the playoffs? You'll hear all of that coming up with Jason Fitz next. It's the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio.